be gained when Mike Ashley's replaced. Yes, there's going to be some quick wins, undoubtedly, but it's not going to be simply a case of coming armed with outlandish statements, I think, that Newcastle United fans will be waiting for, and throwing out any plaudits or brandishing new ideas. I think what we'll be looking for will be a coherent strategy that's been worked out and analysed and future-proofed. I think it's very important to say that Newcastle United supporters do come from a broad church with a multitude of opinions. Some of them are quite wacky, some of them are political, but no matter how wacky they may appear or how political, I think everyone in Newcastle United supporter deserves to be listened. And if we're to move away from the last, what seems to be pertinent herding cats position that I think we've all heard many times now, that's pervaded this club over the last 13 years, in some instances fairly longer. Yeah, there's going to be problems that we're going to overcome. Newcastle United supporters will probably get drawn into discussions on topics and themes that are way beyond anything that we've previously considered. Ones that we considered normal in a safe place. Political commentary that mixes sports and human rights are going to inevitably be a hot topic for us as supporters. And I think we're going to have to approach those topics rather sympathetically and, most importantly, with the appropriate due courtesy that those topics need to be spoken about. I think finally, I'd just like to say that as a city, Newcastle and its people is known throughout the world for its position on human rights and our freedoms and obligations that human rights demand, whether it's Martin Luther King, whether it's Nelson Mandela, who was a freeman of the city. The people of Tyneside have always stood shoulder to shoulder with those who have led the struggle, and I think will continue to do so. And I think that should be reassuring for the rest of the world, people who have concerns about who our new owners are and what their intentions are. But if the right team's in place, the new owners, whoever they are and wherever they come from, I think we'll all welcome them with a strong and fair light. And if we all work together, I think we can all work for the benefit of a united Newcastle. And I think that's important. We'll not shirk from our responsibilities, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we are Newcastle United supporters. I think that's basically all I need to get over at this point in time. Thanks, George.
Thank you very much, Steve. And now, if you just bear with me for a second, please. So you'll notice I've changed my background just for a second. I have been asked to read out a contribution from Hatice Cengiz, the fiance of Jamal Khashoggi. So I'm reading out her contribution. My message to you as loyal Newcastle fans is to stand together to oppose the takeover of your football club by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. This is the right thing to do because Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who owns and controls the fund, was involved in the murder of the love of my life, Jamal Khashoggi. It happened on the 2nd of October 2018 in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Jamal was brutally killed just days before our wedding. We went to the Saudi consulate to collect a certified copy of papers needed for our marriage. He had been lured there by Saudi officials. While I waited outside the gates of the consulate, a 15-member Saudi death squad who had flown to Istanbul earlier that same day ambushed Jamal and murdered him inside the consulate. They first suffocated him, then proceeded to cut his body in pieces using a bone saw. Then they smuggled Jamal's body out of the consulate and fled back to Saudi Arabia using the government's jets. To this day, Jamal's body has not been handed over. For weeks after the murder, Saudi officials denied knowing what happened to Jamal. However, when Turkish intelligence officials released evidence proving otherwise, the Saudi government admitted their agents killed Jamal. Every independent and impartial investigation, including by the CIA and by the United Nations, concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered Jamal's murder. No one from the UK with a murder accusation will be allowed to own and direct a Premier League club, and the exact same standard must apply to others trying to get into football in England. I know that many Newcastle fans are desperate to replace the current owner, but that must not blind us to what the Crown Prince is accused of and how very serious this is. I urge you to ask whether this is really someone you want associated with you and your club. This is not about politics or business. It is about murder, plain and simple. It is also essential to think of the future and how this could detrimentally affect your club, its reputation, and its strength as a football club. The Saudi Crown Prince is not the same as the Crown Prince of the UK. Saudi's Crown Prince is the de facto ruler of an absolute monarch. Since coming to power in Saudi Arabia, he has ruled with absolute force, arresting and torturing thousands who either get in his way, express a different view, or who he perceives to be a threat to his rule. Jamal was one of Saudi Arabia's leading journalists. He was silenced and banned from writing in any publication because the Crown Prince did not like what he was saying. Jamal had to leave Saudi Arabia. He moved to the United States because of the individual freedoms it offered, especially freedom of the press. In Washington, D.C., Jamal soon started writing for one of the most influential newspapers in the world, the Washington Post. We need to all consider, why is the Crown Prince wanting to buy Newcastle Football Club now? Jamal's murder has destroyed his reputation. He is desperately trying to restore his good name and whitewash his responsibility for Jamal's murder. If he is allowed to purchase Newcastle Football Club, it will help him to cover up the crime. It will look as though all is back to normal. We must all stand together and united to prevent a cover-up and to uphold the time-honoured standards and ethics of the Football League and British society. So thank you for that contribution. If you bear with me 1 second. Thank you very much. And now our next contributor is Jamila Khan from Amnesty International. Jamila.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you to Chi for inviting me at this, and thank you to everyone for listening in advance. I just want to sort of touch on a few quick points. First of all, it's not for Amnesty International to say who should own a football club. Our view today is to discuss the human rights considerations in the deciding process of this takeover. And also just to touch on what Steve and Greg have also said, Amnesty International do not believe it's the responsibility of the fans to talk about human rights issues or to raise human rights concerns. Rather, we want to sort of use this as a spotlight to talk about sports washing and why there should continue to be a platform and a forum of discussion on human rights considerations and violations. So just real quickly, just wanted to say, you know, the Premier League and all businesses have a responsibility to respect human rights in what they do, and that includes sports bodies and football teams. The issue with this takeover is not that it's one individual who is, you know, considered a bit dodgy or a bit strange or has had weird involvement in human rights. It's a whole sovereign nation. It's a nation, and the PIF is directly overseen by the Crown Prince, and his involvement and implication in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, as well as the torture and arrest of women human rights defenders, the crackdowns and increase in the death penalty against juveniles, is an issue that Amnesty International is concerned with. And this is all to say, you know, there's a separation between our criticism of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Premier League football as a business, and the fan base, which is part of the local community and consists of very loyal and passionate people involved in a lot of community work, as Greg's talked about, and food insecurity and food banks. And so it's healthy to have this discussion, I believe. So our main concern is sports washing. Sports washing is the attempt of governments and states to use positive associations with people that people will have with sport. It's to boost the image, to divert attention away from human rights violations that they are responsible for. So Amnesty believes that Saudi Arabia and its poor human rights record with this takeover of a, you know, quite a prestigious and top tier football club is a way for Amnesty to divert attention away. Is a way for Saudi, sorry, to divert attention away from its abysmal human rights record. In recent years, Saudi authorities have hosted a string of high-profile international sporting events, which have been aimed to boost Saudi's profile. It's not just this takeover. We are looking at Formula One. We're looking at world championships of boxing. And sports washing is not just something that Saudi commits. We've been quite vocal on the Beijing Olympics in 2008, Sochi, and as well as Qatar. Qatar, talking about the human rights violations, had a positive effect. When FIFA allowed Qatar to host the World Cup for 2022, in 2016, Amnesty International wrote to the chief executive and the Manchester Council to put out a public statement in solidarity of migrant workers and the treatment they were receiving in Qatar. And that actually led to some implementations of scrutiny of Qatar. So what we're trying to say is, Newcastle fans should feel positive and celebrate the football club and the new investment into it. What we are trying to get across is that human rights should be considered in the process of deciding this, and that there should be a space to raise human rights issues. If you're concerned about what you're hearing about women human rights defenders who just peacefully express the right to thrive and are still detained and tortured in prisons, and then that's something that you should perhaps raise if you're concerned about it, but it's no means your responsibility to. Fans are responsible for some of the most great campaigns like Kick It Out. It's the fans' desire to kick racism out of football which led to the changes that we see today. I mean, the UK is, one of the countries that has least racist chanting. I mean, in Europe, there's more to do, clearly, but it's a good positive step. And what we are trying to say is, as long as there is a forum and there is a space for people to openly criticize Saudi Arabia and its treatment of human rights and activists, then that's all we can hope for. It's not our responsibility to say who should own a football club and what the fans should do, but if you are interested in championing some of these human rights concerns, as you are with social justice issues domestically, like food insecurity, and that would be something, really welcome. Newcastle is a great club, and we just look forward to campaigning with activists on the ground and with Newcastle fans, should they wish to. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jamila. Just to let you know that we have a couple of speakers left to go, and then we're opening it up to you guys. So we're trying to keep these comments as short as possible, so that everybody gets a chance to have a say. So next up, we have Ghanam Al Masariya, the Saudi activist and satirist. Are you with us, Ghanam?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ghanam Al Masariya. I host a YouTube show which called the Ghanam Show for years. And I would like to explain why I oppose the takeover by the Saudis. First of all, Saudi has a huge record of abusing human rights back home. I can't mention case by case or name, but recently we have Jamal Khashoggi, which was killed and dismembered in Saudi consulate. The reason is because he was a journalist and speaking up his mind. And a week ago, we have Dr. Abdullah Al-Hamid died in prison in age of 75. Because and he was imprisoned because of his activism inside the kingdom. So, and there are thousands. The women who campaigned to get women to drive was jailed, and there are thousands of human rights. So the Saudi record of human rights is something nobody will be proud of. And by allowing Saudi Arabia to take over, which is MBS, the Crown Prince, to take over Newcastle, he is planning to send messages to the Saudi people and to the West, to the British people as well. The message to the Saudis is he can get away with murder, even the killing and the dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi, which he got away with it. and he can say to the Saudis, I am now, I can do what I want, and even they allowed me in the West to buy this club. And to the West, he wanted to say, to promote his propaganda and to well, to clean his image, which is not a good image right now. I don't think UK government should allow this to happen. And I think the Premium League should reconsider this takeover by allowing vote or anything to happen. Because if MBS got this purchase, that is gonna be embarrassing to the UK government, because allowing someone with the blood in his hand, a criminal, there is no difference between him and the Kim Jong-un or others. So that will send a signal to all the criminals around the world. You can come and buy football club in the UK, which mentioned earlier as history, heritage, something belong to the people, and their voice should be considered. Therefore, I do wish this purchase does not go ahead, and I wish they will reconsider allowing the Saudi to take it to take off, because I am a big fan myself of football. But if MBS bought it, I will not attend any football match in that club, because I would fear all my life. We all know that he killed someone in his council. So with saying that, there are millions of investors around the world. I think there are people who have good reputation to take over this and to make it a good club for the community and for the fans and for everybody, not the MBS. With that, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for joining us, Ghanem. Thank you, appreciate that. And now, in our final speaker before we hand it over to fans, I'd like to call upon Steve Wraith from Newcastle Legends to say a few words too. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, good evening, and just want to express my thanks to Chi for pulling this together and for you for hosting this, George. Can I also say that, you know, we as Newcastle United fans and people of this fabulous city, Newcastle, obviously, you know, give our deepest condolences to, you know, Khashoggi's family and obviously his partner, who obviously had to suffer such a horrific incident. And also, you know, I also would like to say, you know, congratulate the lady from Amnesty who made some very valid points. And obviously Amnesty have to be heard because they are a very big organization and do fantastic work worldwide. However, this is sport. This is Newcastle United, and this is our club. And as supporters, we want to see a new owner. We've had Mike Ashley at our club for 13 years. 12 of those 13 years have been very, very painful for supporters. And I know a lot of people will think that there's a lot more to life than football, but for a city which basically survives because of the football team and lives and breathes football, it's very, very important to us. And essentially what we want is change. And we've now got that opportunity. And I think anyone who lives in the city will agree with me that we've got a fantastic city. It's very diverse. It's a multicultural city. And it's a city that we're all extremely proud of. And for me to see PCP partners facilitating a deal, which of course involves a vast amount of investment from the Saudi PIF, but also includes Jewish money with the Reuben brothers and good old North Yorkshire money with Amanda Staveley, who was married to an Iranian. We have a diverse set of owners coming into the club, it seems. So for me, that ultimately is something which we should also encourage. Maybe we could help solve world peace once we've managed to get our football club back to normal. What would I like to see the new owners bring? Very simple. Communication. It's something we haven't had from Mike Ashley for 13 years. Communication will improve our football club. It will improve the relationship between the fans and the club. We want the club legends welcomed back into the club. We've seen many of our legends, you know, embarrassed or kicked out of St James's Park. We want to welcome them back in because they can do so much for us in ambassadorial roles and in and around the club. We need to take a leaf out of the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, Manchester United's books with our legends. It won't happen overnight, but we need the money that they bring in from Saudi in particular to help us with the infrastructure within the club, to improve our training facilities, improve our fabulous stadium, and of course, improve our team, which is what essentially drives everything else forward. But I think the most important thing is reaching out into the community. We have a few speakers on tonight, Steve Hasty, Bill Corcoran in particular, who were involved in the food bank, which George has supported himself, and many of us have as fans. And for me personally, getting involved in the community is again something that our football club does on a regular basis, but doesn't do enough of. We need to be encouraging the women's football team. We need to be investing in the women's football team. We need to be reaching out to all the other diverse groups. We need to be building on the success of the foundation and of Newcastle's pride. There's so many things that we can do as a football club because we are a community club. But unfortunately, that can only happen if this takeover goes through. And for me, that is the one reason that we should be embracing, you know, our involvement, not only with Saudi, but with Amanda Staveley, who is facilitating the deal with PCP. So for me, it's a great opportunity. Let's hope that it goes through and we can all get the cans out in the next couple of weeks. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you indeed to all of our speakers. And what we're going to do now is we are going to open the floor up to you. And firstly, that means we have a list of people who have asked to make a contribution. So we'll go to them first. Just to let you know that the chat function on Zoom is now open. So that's something we'll have a look at as well. If you can, please bear with us at this bit because we're going to have to try and unmute people individually as we ask them to make their points. And so obviously if we have everybody unmuted at the same time, we'll just all be shouting and talking over each other. So first up, I have Graham Townsley. Graham, if you bear with us for a second and if you can make your point when you're ready, please, that would be great.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for this. I did start off just on my email, just to give you a background that I've been supporting the club since the 70s, season ticket holder since last 25 years, and last summer when Rafa went, then that was my cue to go, and it was purely just because I didn't feel as though my club anymore. I don't think well, I was one of 5,000, but I think a lot of people have felt that over the last few years. I don't think there's much point talking about who's going to be the new manager, new player, because I just think that's irrelevant really to that side of things. My hope, I think, is to bring all the local businesses in the northeast that have such great talent to actually work and try and develop the club and compete with that community spirit. I do appreciate that the money that is needed to run the club, i.e. sponsorship deals, will be bigger multinational companies. But I really, really hope that the new board do go round, do contribute and do get to know the local businesses from that side of things. Because I think the big thing with the bond of the city is when the people and the city come together. And the other bit I'd like to say is I do work and travel myself, but I think the tourism as well, if we can do that, because I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of people come to this city as hopefully we get more successful. And I think, again, to work with the tourist boards and make us the welcoming city we are can only be good for the economy and really build up the city. I think it's a real good opportunity for the city to grow with the local businesses and the local tourist boards from that side of things. So that is really overall my sort of point of view, really. And I think that's the positive side and the exciting bit Newcastle could be.
Brilliant, Graham. Thank you very much indeed. That's a great way to kick us off. I should have said beforehand, we're trying to keep contributions to a couple of minutes if possible. Graham, you did that perfectly, so thank you very much indeed. And next on my list is Brian Swanson. So hopefully in a second or two, Brian will be ready to join us. Are you there, Brian?
I am, George, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Brian.
Right, a lot of what I've got to say is that I wish to speak against the takeover. A lot of what I want to say has been covered by previous speakers, particularly that powerful letter from Mr. Khashoggi's fiancée, Ms. Cengiz. But I'll read it anyway, but it might be some repetition in it. His name has been mentioned just obliquely, actually, not directly, but it is a fact that if this takeover goes ahead, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will be the new ultimate owner of Newcastle United Football Club, even though apparently his name doesn't appear in any legal takeover papers. Now, there may be a good reason for that. He probably didn't want his name mentioned at any early stage, but he will be the ultimate owner. His public investment fund are putting up 80% of the fee, which is around £240 million. Now, he controls the whole of Saudi Arabia, probably, certainly the Public Investment Fund. And there's no way he's going to invest £240 million and not be in control. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, including, as I said, Mr. Khashoggi's fiancée, Mr. bin Salman is not fit and proper person to own our great football club, or any other one for that matter. As they say, he's been accused of many human rights abuses, the war in Yemen and the crackdown on feminists and human rights activists in Saudi Arabia. And of course, the incident in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul is well known now to everyone. On his, I'll not go over that detail again, but basically he was murdered there whilst he was trying to get his wedding certificate, which was to happen a few days later. And Ms. Cengiz, his fiancée, sat outside, as she said, the whole time, but never saw him again. And as she said, both the UN and CIA have said the murder was ordered by bin Salman. I would have thought this guy with this reputation wouldn't be the sort of man Geordies would want to own their great football club. I understand the long-held wish the fans have to see the end of Mike Ashley and for the club to sort out finances that enable them to compete for the best players and thereby challenge for the top competitions. But this is not the way to do it. Bin Salman makes Mike Ashley look like Captain Tom. He will use the club and the global power of the Premier League to whitewash his reputation, as he is seen around the world sitting in our director's box, entertaining the great and the good. I can't believe Geordies could really be happy selling their birthright for this blood money, just to win a few football trophies. If the takeover goes ahead, that will not be the end of it, just the beginning. St. James's Park will become the focal point for demonstrations against the Saudis. The army will be vilified at away grounds, and the reputation of the city of Newcastle and Geordies everywhere will be tarnished by association.
Okay, Brian.
I've just got one more sentence there.
Okay, well we're trying to give it 2 minutes each, and you're almost double that time, so we have to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, well, just to finish off, let's do the right thing and stand behind Ms. Cengiz rather than this bully. Thank you, George.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. It's very tough for everybody because this is, this is something that's very important to all of us for lots of reasons, and some of them very emotive. But we have to try and be fair to everybody, just so we can try and hear as many voices as possible. And so I really don't want to interrupt, and because that's rude. But also, if you can try and please keep your contributions to a couple of minutes, that would be great, because that means we can hear as many as possible. So next up, we have Akil PK. Akil PK. So are you there, Akil? Do we have Akil there? Not as yet. So I might move on to the next one on my list and see, possibly we can come back to Akil. One more chance for Akil. All right, I'm going to go to Marion Williams, who's next on the list. Hi, Marion, you just popped up on my screen, so I'm hoping that means you can hear me. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, thank you, George. I've been involved with Newcastle for many a year now, and was on the fans liaison committee, one of the elected fans representatives many years ago. So the notion that fans will ever have much say in their club is a bit of a moot point, as many of you on here will fully understand. For me, I fully respect those involved with human rights and would be the first amongst many to call people out. And therefore, it's been a huge dilemma for me to see somebody who we can despise so readily come forward to take on our club. And that tension will never go away, even if and when the takeover is successful. But what I do know is I'll always support my club, Newcastle United. You'll tell from my accent I wasn't born here, but it is my adopted club, and one that I love dearly, along with my son, whose passion is hard to match. The country's relationship with Saudi Arabia has been pretty dysfunctional and embarrassing for many years. I think we take about 3% of their oil these days. It used to be much more. But the arms trade through BAE and the thousands of jobs, not just in this region, but across the country, has been very important. And I've often spoken out against it. I was absolutely appalled and horrified to see how women are treated, how journalists are treated, how minors were receiving the death penalty. So the list would go on, and it does stack up against. But what I would say is this, because I always want to see a positive in something, and I think we must work with Amnesty International and other individuals and organisations with this. As Saudi Arabia comes out into the Western world, and do recognise that the amount of money that's being put into Newcastle pales into insignificance when you compare it to structural investments in the United States, when you look at the stake in Tesla, when you look at their recent stake in Live Nation, an entertainment group. And I do feel that Newcastle's being singled out quite unfairly, as usual, to take the butt of this when there are so many other organisations involved. So in their interest in coming out into the Western world, they are addressing some of their human rights. No way are they going far enough, but it's a start. And if Newcastle United can play a role, as we do in so many ways, in bringing a country out of its darkest practices into a more Western view of the world, which in itself we can criticise, but if we can bring them out of that dark place and free a lot of the human rights that we share and enjoy up for people in that country, then Newcastle will be proud. We are a proud people, and we should be proud that we could make a very positive step in the right direction here. But don't ever forget that will be a very important part for the fans to play in any takeover by this group. Thank you.
All right, Marion, thank you very much indeed. That's great. You're in a little bit of trouble for going over, but thank you very much. I know it's very difficult for everybody, and so I'm trying to kind of chivvy everybody along as much as possible. But thanks again, and thanks all of us. Thanks to everybody. Sorry for bearing with us. Right, I gather we now have Akil back on the line. So if Akil is with us, we'd love to get your contribution now, please.
Hi, George.
Hi, Akil. Go ahead. You've got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm from India, and it's few Newcastle United fans here in India, but I'm supporting since 2005. This 50 years I'm supporting Newcastle United, and I'm so much glad to hear that the takeover is news takeover news is spreading, and may or may not it happen, but we'll always stick together with Newcastle United. That Saudi owner bid, I think that before 2 years, a takeover bid rejected by Mike Ashley, and this 350 million and takeover will definitely. The main thing is that we all definitely want to end the Mike Ashley era. That 2 relegations that we suffered, we have been a great team in the 90s to 2000. That's the main point, is that all fans, definitely that 90%, 97% of fans support to that takeover is only because they are devastated by this Mike Ashley's decisions. That 10 managers, I think that in that period of time, that those 13 years that we suffered a lot, we definitely want to be that Newcastle United in the past. We have great history, and I hope that we'll definitely be a great team.
Thank you, Akil. That's great. You get bonus points for 1.5 minutes. So thank you very much. That's great. Thanks very much indeed. Great to hear from you. Our next contributor is Tony Charlton. So hopefully, Tony will be able to join us soon. Tony, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, Tony.
Yeah, I just feel that the human, it's got nothing to do with football, governments and stuff like that, and it should stay that way. Football and sport should be completely separate to governments and to foreign scrutiny.
Is that it? Thank you, Tony. That's short and sweet. Okie dokie. Thank you for that. Next up, somebody who I know very well. Mark Douglas. Do we have a Mr. Mark Douglas on the line? Mark, are you there?
George, how you doing? I'm looking radiant, mate.
Trust a journalist to be absolutely ill-prepared.
How you
Come
doing,
on,
mate?
you're live.
You okay?
You are using up all your time. You've got 2 minutes, and I'm going to be ruthless with you.
2 minutes. Okay. I think there's been some absolutely fantastic points tonight. I think the main point that I wanted to make tonight was just that Newcastle fans. I think there's no doubt that the majority are for this takeover. My only point is that I think that they should make sure that this is a really important time for them to be able to extract sort of promises from the new owners, and also any concerns that they do have. This is the exact time, I think, for them to voice them. Don't just welcome in new owners without any kind of questions for them. But I think my final point, trying to get in under 2 minutes, would be that that we should listen to the supporters here. If the majority are for it, I do think that people should not lecture supporters. But I think it's very important that we're all educated on things like human rights. But I do think this is a great time. Don't just let new owners in and because we see the money, make sure that they're the right people for Newcastle United. And I'm sure these people will be, a lot of them involved with the deal. But then we also have to look at the other side of it as well.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. Really appreciate that. Okay, we're going through these. Next up, we have Neil Newton. So I'm hoping that Neil will be able to join us very soon. Neil, are you there?
Hi, Neil. Hi. I just wanted to make the point that I support the removal of Mike Ashley if he's going to sell. He's had his foot on the throat of the club's ambition now for the 13 years he's been there. My children who are taking the match, they all live known as Mike Ashley. So from a football perspective, I just want to go back to the game with some hope. The human rights issues I'm aware of, terrible murder, but all nation states have some blood on our hands somewhere along the line. I think that side of it, the political dealings, should be left. Well, not necessarily left. Yes, of course, should be educated on human rights. That's not to say that many fans aren't already. But ultimately, our governments, our current governments and past governments, continue to deal with the Saudi Arabian regime. So I think more effort from on their side, particularly with arms and likes of that, with weapons, the war in Yemen, we're aware of that. So I support Newcastle United, but I certainly don't support the human rights abuses in Saudi. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Neil. Appreciate that. Thanks very much for joining us, for taking the time to do that. Next up, we have Umar Farouk. Umar, are you with us?
Hi, Joel, can you hear me?
Can indeed, Umar. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep it brief because a lot of my points have been made already by people, some great points. Just 2 points, really. Firstly, just about what Newcastle fans want, with Mike Ashley, obviously, being here for 13 years. I think a lot of things that the new owners will do potentially would appease a lot of our fans, because what Ashley's done has been, obviously not good for the club, for the community, everything. So I think we're open for investment and change. And I think whatever new owners bring would be much appreciated. I don't think we're expecting, overnight success, lots of spending. I think it's about slow growth, it's about investment, it's about building the club, the infrastructure. That's the important thing. Secondly, in terms of the points made about human rights, I think with the Saudi regime and what they've done, this whole thing about sports washing, etc., we've seen the images slowly changing. They are opening themselves up. We had WWE going there, we had Anthony Joshua fighting in Saudi Arabia, and I think this could be, as Marion said earlier on, it could be a time of change for everyone to understand what the country's about, but also raise our voices and bring out our opinion against human rights abuse. We stand against that, but just to tarnish the entire country and say the human rights abuse is there, etc., and this takeover should not happen. I don't agree with that. As a Newcastle fan, obviously against human rights abuses everywhere, and I think it's not just a one-way conversation. When the owners come in, we want to raise our voices as well against any abuse and speak up against it, but at the same time appreciate that the takeover would mean a lot of new good things for the city and the club.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. And let me just say again, thanks to everybody who's joining in, either by asking, either by making points or by watching. It's really appreciated. Thank you, Umar. Next up, we have Dan Clark. Is Dan Clark with us, please?
I am, yeah, George. Can you hear me?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you.
Nice one. Yeah, I'll just jump straight on it. I'd really like to see the Supporters Trust push for 10% fan ownership. And maybe that could be a good vehicle to do that. I wouldn't expect it to happen overnight, but I would like to see that happen. I would like to see our MPs maybe even table something in Parliament to try and protect other clubs in the same way. Maybe that ship sailed, I don't know, but I would like to see that happen. I would also like the council and our leaders to bend over backwards to support whoever our new owners are in making the club as vibrant as possible and the region. I completely trust those people to raise human rights in the right place at the right time and in the right way, and I think that's important too. I would love to see the club release a statement welcoming Amnesty's input and praising the work that they do, because I think that's crucial, and you can welcome both parties to the table. I think as a club we can do that. Finally, I'd really like to see our club needs to heal, George, and I would love to see that happen spectacularly. Really, I would like to see a really big campaign, initiative, or an occasion to relaunch our club and to reconnect it back to the supporters, back with the region, and involve as many cultural institutions as we can in that. I think the region really could do with investment. Obviously, there's massive issues around where the majority of this consortium money is coming from. I don't think that you resolve human rights issues or that you help countries to modernise by isolating them economically. I've never seen any case studies of that working. So I think it's a really good opportunity actually to maybe help those people by welcoming that investment, and that's a big thing for me to say, because I work as a writer and I realise the level of persecution that people in Saudi Arabia have had to endure at the hands of the Crown Prince there. That's everything I've got to say. Thanks, George. I really appreciate it that this has been put on by Cheese Team and everything. It's been great. Thanks.
Oh, thanks very much, Dan. That's great having you, and really appreciate you taking the time out to chat to us. That's what it's all about. Thank you very much. Next up on the list, we have Steve Harrop. Is Steve Harrop there, please?
I am. Can you hear me?
can hear you loud and clear, Steve. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I'd just like to raise, first of all, I think Dan, Omar and Marion have raised some brilliant points, and I also took in Brian's as well. There's two words I think I'd like to put here. One is hope and one is journey. And I think, I'm one of the little boys that climbed up the steps with my dad when I was little and fell in love with the place and couldn't do nothing else with it since. And it's been my lifelong love affair of nearly 56 years. The journey is important. We as a country have been on a journey over hundreds of years, and we've been one of those nations that's got a lot of blood on our hands and has done many things around the world. But I'd like to think the two words would combine in hope and journey, that this would be a window to everybody. If we get the Saudi investment in, they would have to be more open in terms of what people were seeing, because we would be that window and we would be provided with the hope to take our club, which needs that and hasn't had it for 13 years, but also to take it into a region which relies on it. But equally, the hope is that there will be change. There'll be change in the club, there'll be change in the city and the region, and there'll be change from our owners and the key owner to actually be a better contributor to what goes on. I do think football and politics should be separate, because there's too many examples of other people who bought clubs with terrible records, and we've not done much about that as a Premier League or as a government. But I think today it's the hope that Newcastle United will grow with people and take them with us, because I think that's our cultural heritage. We give people hope, and we've had it taken from us for too long. So well done everybody else, but that's my point. And I really am passionate about the two, as you can probably tell. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. You also have a fantastic taste in shirts, if you don't mind me saying so. Right. Thank you, Steve. Right. Next up, we have Cliff Cully. Is Cliff Cully there for us, please? Hey there, Cliff.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Actually, the point I was going to make is very well presented by Dan earlier on. Do I want us to be taken over? Yes. Do I want us to be taken over by this group? I feel very uncomfortable about it. Football clubs are more than just a business. It's part of the community, and that's particularly so with Newcastle. The reality is that we cannot stop wealthy individuals or organisations owning football clubs. Probably nor do we want to. However, we can't allow a club to promote their owners' immorality or unacceptable customs, either directly or indirectly, which we've done to a certain extent with Mike Ashley. The law helps in a way, as, for example, it won't allow homophobic or racist or sexist propaganda. However, it's more than that. The club represents the culture of the city and its people, and that should not be tarnished by association with unwanted owners. So how do we help just to try and alleviate that? I think it's imperative that the club's decisions can be influenced by the city and its people. We therefore need meaningful representation of clubs by elected fans to directly influence the decision making of the club. And I think that can only come through legislation, only come through law, through Parliament, from MPs, that will ensure that all clubs, like there's positive examples out there like Leicester City and such like, but if all clubs had a percentage of the fan base on the board of directors to influence that decision making, I think that would be a positive aspect and might be a positive outcome from this. So I invite the MPs that are listening in to consider that and possibly move that in Parliament.
Smashing. Thank you very much indeed, Cliff. And I don't mean this to be patronising or trying, because I'm a Newcastle fan as well, but I would just like to say the tone of this conversation and the points made are fabulous. They're educational for me, they're interesting, and they're respectful, and they're inclusive. So thank you very much indeed. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, so next up we have Christopher Argris. I hope I've pronounced that right. Argris. Christopher, are you there?
Close enough. Thank you, George, and thank you, Chief, for facilitating this forum. As an American expat in UK since 2015, supported United since 1993, I believe I can speak to the international reach of United back to the entertainers era under John Hall's ownership, and the promise of new ownership who doesn't just care about the turning a profit for a portfolio, but sees the benefit of investing in the squad, the club, and the community. Newcastle will always have diehard supporters, no matter what ownership, but we need to get the club back on side with the community and with the tune. To turn the page on Mike Ashley's fraught ownership and to restore the glory of a proud club that's not just won many famous victories and trophies, but is the beating heart and soul of Tyneside and the greater Newcastle and Northeast. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Christopher. That's great. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, next on the list we have Peter Morn. Are you with us, Peter?
I am indeed, George, and thank you for all you've done this evening. Thank you. I have to declare an interest because I'm an elected director of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, but that doesn't make me any less a fan. I just wanted to say that this is all about politics, but the politics it should be about is the politics of Newcastle United, not world politics. We all have our own political views on human rights in particular, and you couldn't help but be moved by some of the things we've heard this evening. But let's keep this in perspective. We're talking about a football club that's very important to many of us, but a football club nonetheless. It's not a sovereign nation, nor can we as a club possibly have any say in the way a sovereign nation conducts itself. But we can, well, I hope we can with the new owners, have a say in our club and the way our club is run. And that's what we want to do. Whoever owns the shares in the club, we want to have an influence, and that's the politics which is important. And that's why I was delighted to hear from Greg Tomlinson earlier on the work of the trust. So all I can say is thanks for everyone who organised this. It's been enlightening. It's been extremely well run, and I'm grateful to have played a small part.
Oh, smashing, Peter. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for joining us. That's marvellous. Okay, so next up we have another Stephen Cockburn. Not sure how to pronounce that, so you can put us straight, Stephen, if you're there.
Hi, it's Stephen Cockburn. There's no other way of pronouncing that. Yeah, thanks everyone, and it's a really great debate. And I've been a fan since games in the 80s. I should also declare I do work for Amnesty International as well, but I'm coming to this as a member of the Supporters Trust. I'm a fan myself. I'm as desperate as everyone else to get rid of Mike Ashley, desperate to bring some hope back, desperate for the club to mean something again. And so I've been excited about takeovers for years. I am uneasy about this as a fan, not just as a human rights professional. I'm worried that club's going to get misused for someone else's agenda, not ours. And I think, we were here before Saudi Perth, we'll be here afterwards. I think we have a role as fans to try and protect that reputation and our values and our commitment to social justice. And that's not to say that's a fan's fault or this is not on us, but we've got no choice in the takeover, but we do have a choice about how we react to it. And I'm actually really heartened to hear the discussions today. Actually, I think it's really good, and the discussions in the chat as well. And I think it's just important. The only way that we can counteract an idea of sports washing is to talk about human rights, is to actively campaign, is to actively speak out about it. I think it'd be great to think about ways that the Supporters Trust could create that space for fans to do that. And I don't know what that would look like exactly, or if there are groups of fans who could run campaigns. And that's to show that we are not just passengers in this deal, that we are part of it. And even if the owners own the club, they don't own our views. And I think it'd be a really great positive thing for fans to do, to show that we do have those values and we want to support the team, but we're not condoning everything that goes on with the owners. But the clubs have done it. The Spirit of Shankly are quite a good group at Liverpool. Have spoken out about Qatar. Same with Bayern Munich. There's a lot to learn out there. And to be honest, if the spirit is as good as the conversation here in the chat, I'm much more optimistic than I was before the call. So thank you for organising this.
Smashing, Stephen. Thank you very much. Yes, just to make the point again. The debate has been uplifting and wonderful and done in absolutely the right spirit. I have been alerted to some comments on YouTube, and it's just to say that when I said at the start that we have zero tolerance for abuse, we do mean that seriously. And so if there is abusive stuff, that will be forwarded to the relevant authorities. I don't mean that to sound worse than it does, but you know, we do have a responsibility to engage in respectful, polite, passionate, engaged debate. On here, it's been absolutely wonderful. Let's please keep it like that. That's very important, and it's part of who we are as Newcastle fans. Right, thank you very much, Stephen. Next on the list is Alan Park. Are you there, Alan?
I am. Hello.
Hi, Alan.
I suppose I'd start by saying, first of all, I think the takeover should go through. I don't think Newcastle United fans should be expected to do any different than our own government has done for a number of years now. But I don't think that comes at the expense of scrutiny. And I think if we were to look back 13 years, there's probably a few people who wished we'd scrutinised the intentions of Mike Ashley 13 years ago. And so whilst I think the takeover should go through, I do think it should be properly scrutinised by both journalists, MPs, but also our own fan groups, the Supporters Trust, in actually asking what is the intention behind this purchase. What do the PIF actually want to achieve with Newcastle United? What's the intention? Because I think if we do that, we can, as has been said previously, we can shine a light onto some of the reasons behind this, some of the maybe intentions behind it, and actually it can become more of a force for good. There was a great article on The Athletic over the weekend by James Montague, which didn't seek to blame Newcastle fans. It didn't seek to put the onus on Newcastle fans or make them culpable. It just said, look, this is why Mohammed bin Salman is doing this. And I thought it was excellent. And I thought it was a shame that didn't get as much traction on social media as articles about Coutinho and Pochettino and things like that. So I suppose I would urge everyone in the spirit of tonight's debate to look at that article, shine a light on the intentions behind this, and scrutinise the intentions of our prospective new owners.
Thank you very much, Alan. Nice plug. I'll certainly gratefully accept that. But no, thank you very much indeed. Right, we're moving swiftly on. Neil Mitchell. Neil is a name I know very well. Are you there, Neil?
I am. Thank you very much, George, and thank you very much, everybody, for organising this evening.
Good lad, crack on.
Okay. Basically, I think from my point of view, and I'm on record as saying this, that football fans aren't here to solve the world. We're here to support our football club, and a lot of us use that 90 minutes on a Saturday to get away from the world for a little bit. But that doesn't mean we should be ignorant of the wider world. And I think what I'm very proud of this evening is that this forum has demonstrated the depth of knowledge, the passion, and the intelligence in the fan base, and we're asking, not frightened to ask the right questions. And I think that's something it's almost been insinuated by certain parts that have knocked us down rather during the Ashley years for asking questions, and we're now being told to rise up and ask questions. Well, we ask questions, ask every owner going back to Westwood and forward. I'm excited at the prospect for the region, for the club, not just regionally but globally. There are so many opportunities there with the kind of investment we're talking about. But with that comes something we must be acutely aware of as a fan base, in my opinion, and that's the geopolitical situation that we have going on, that the club will inevitably be dragged into and the fans will inevitably be dragged into. And the only way we can get across to the wider world that we're engaging with everybody is to do it in a calm and measured fashion, such as this evening. Don't react instantly to people who are looking for a reaction. Take a step back and think about, well, where's this information coming, and then why is that being said the way it is? I've reached out to fans across the Middle East and Africa over the last couple of days, and I can even find you guys in Tripoli, very much war-torn Tripoli, right at the centre of this geopolitical situation, who are still excited by the takeover and how torn they must be inside about that, but at the same time, it's about their football club, what they see as their football club. And I think we've got so many opportunities as a fan base to stand up and make everybody proud of the city and everybody proud of the club again, and make us proud of ourselves again. And we need more interaction like this to do that.
Thank you, Neil. That was my least unpleasant visit to a dentist for a very long time. Neil, by the way, is a dentist, which is why I'm saying that. Right, thank you very much indeed. Next up, we have Keith Gray. Is Keith Gray there, please?
I am here, George. Thank you, and thank Chi and the Trust for pulling this together, and a special thank you to James, who looks like he's putting a shift in the background to sort this out. Saudi Arabia are a wealthy country. I think of that there's no doubt, but as a society, despite their wealth, you might well argue that socially, developmentally, they're not quite in the same century as we are. And that goes for other cultures too. Anybody self-schooling at the minute will open history books to look at our good selves drowning women for being witches. If they survived that, then we burned them because that meant that they were a witch. So perhaps as a culture, we could help educate others who've moved on ourselves. It's clear they invest worldwide, governments, including our own, universities, including many of our own as well, and recently including holiday companies and cruise lines. I've never seen a cruise line town hall being needed because of complaints in the media against Saudi investment. So why is it so important to journalists in the UK that Newcastle United bear the brunt of this apparent upsurge of anger towards them? This will bring investment to our city, the wider county, jobs for many areas, and with what's going on at the minute, by God, that money's needed. Wider prosperity and, incredibly enough, tourism from the Middle East to Newcastle, not the other way around, to get some sun. I really just want to understand what we've done as a region to merit this ongoing prejudice now against our city, our football club, which is now allied to their kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. All right, who have we got next? Rob Hetherington. Do we have Rob on the line, please? Is Rob there? Are you there, Rob?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you, Rob, yeah.
Cheers. Well, my first point was, I wasn't going to say this, but we shouldn't be mixing politics, religion with sport. Basically, we're a football club, and we are here to support our football club, and we just want a new owner to take it forward. My main point, though, was I would like to thank Chi for the pressure she's put on the likes of Mike Ashley over the last 13 years. My point is, I want to know, has the new or potential new owners been in touch with the likes of Chi, any other stakeholders, that what their intentions are for our football club? I think that's what we need to be finding out. That's my point, and I hope Chi will come on later on and tell us.
All right, Rob, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think sort of what we're trying to do tonight really is to try and engage the mood of you first of all. I mean, I know that that reaching out process is part of what the new owners would want to do, and I think they would speak more about that if and when it happens. Right, but perhaps she would like to address that at the end. We'll see. Next up, after Rob, we have Gary Liddle. Is Gary Liddle on the line, please?
Hello, yeah. You hear us?
Hiya, Gary. Yeah.
Hiya there. How are you doing? All right. Yeah. I'm a season ticket holder for over 28 years. I, for one, would like to see this takeover happen. I don't know anyone personally who didn't want this to go through, because I think we need rid of Mike Ashley. I know that there's things that obviously going to Saudi Arabia, it's a big thing that's going to be that needs to be looked into. But I think Mike Ashley's done enough damage to our club and city, and I think that we need a fresh start as soon as possible. I just hope that the new owners that they do invest in the team and the club in the city. And I'm hoping that it's similar to what happened at Man City, and that they're on and off the pitch. Just going slightly looking at the Sheffield United deal. They had a new owner, Prince Abdullah bin, who was taken over there. There seemed to be no fuss that was from the journalists when that happened. I know it's slightly different that he's using his personal money. I think it's a bit different hours, but I didn't even know he was in charge of Sheffield United until a few months ago. So I know it's quite recent, but it seems to be we're getting the finger pointing at us. And I just want to see hope and belief come back to the club. Thank you.
Smashing. Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Okay, so next up, do we have Greg on the line? Greg Morrison.
Hi, yeah.
I've just been on.
Are you there, Greg?
Hello? Yeah.
Okay, not seeing you though.
Hello?
Richard, do we have Richard Grant on the line? All right, I'm going to just pause for 1 second just to let you know that there are a couple of additional slots, speaking slots at the end that have opened up. If people would like to have a couple of minutes at the end, please make it known in the chat, and we'll get to you if we possibly can. Right, who's next up on the list? Who did I say? I've forgotten where we are. Bear with me just for 1 second. John Lane. Do we have John Lane on the line, please?
Yeah, I'm here, George. Thank you.
Hi, John. That's a relief.
And thanks to the Supporters Trust and She and everyone else who's put this together. I was going to ask the same question as Rob asked earlier about about whether there's been engagement or not. But I think the main thing for me I want to see, if possible, is fan engagement through the board. Dan Clark mentioned earlier about 10% ownership from the trust. In reality, I think if we could get fan engagement through the board and having an elected member of the board from the fans, that would be a massive difference. And you know, I was involved with the forum for 2 to 3 years, and you know, I think having someone on the board would achieve a lot more than what that did. So that's my main point, really. Let's engage the fans and let's hope that there's a real strategy. There is a strategy. Look at Liverpool, look at Man City, look at what could be. I'm not saying we'll be there tomorrow, but let's hope there's a structure and a plan, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. I'm being told, I can see on the top of my screen that Greg is there, but I think I'm going to move on to Glyn Wade next. Is Glyn Wade there, please?
Hiya. Hiya, George.
Hiya, Glyn.
Thank you, everyone, for putting this together. What I would like to say is, given that it is universally accepted that the best way to influence a developing nation is to engage with it and trade with it, which the UK already does to the tune of over £6 billion a year, not including the numerous Saudi-owned assets and investments in London, I'd like to know why all of a sudden is this not the best policy when it comes to owning Newcastle?
Okay. Is that the end of your contribution? I think it is. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Thanks very much, Glyn. Right. So apparently Greg is back on the line. Greg, are you there? The elusive Greg.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Hiya, Greg. You okay?
I am. I feel pressure now after that.
Just make it good.
I do think from the off, I'll say straight up that I do feel quite conflicted. I think it comes down to what football means to you as an individual, and if you can ignore the sort of ownership issues and focus just on the pitch, then I take my hat off to you and I respect you for that. But personally, I can't. I think for me, there's 2 avenues that we need to follow. So as fans, well, we're not responsible. We're not guilty of any sort of wrongdoing. We've got to accept that our club is now attached to Saudi Arabia and the issue that is attached to that. And it is different from things like government involvement and things like states and Uber because of the emotional attachment that we have to our football club. So my plea really is that fans don't resort to allowing our club be used as a vehicle to justify or to defend what goes on in Saudi Arabia, but accept and acknowledge that there are issues and encourage the debate. And secondly to that, I think the media and politicians and forums exactly like this is the way to keep that debate open and to keep it nuanced and to avoid it becoming a sort of tit-for-tat issue like it has seemed to be on social media. So that is my main point really. And on top of that, this forum actually gives, like a lot of other people have said, gives you a lot of hope for how that is. and it's completely changed the sound of the conversation in my head from what you've read on social media and online. So our job really is to keep this format going, but on a bigger scale and involve more fans. So thank you for organising it.
Hey, that's great. Thanks, Greg. And no, I would agree with that 100%. It's very difficult to get into nuance and detail and in that 240 characters or whatever it is. So it's been a real pleasure to be part of this and to listen to people's views. So again, thank you so much for that. Okay, I think we have, let me see who's next. I think we have Daniel Fox should be next on the line. Daniel, are you there?
I am, yes. A lot of pressure now because everyone else seems like professional speakers. So I've prepared something that I wanted to say based on what other people were saying. So first of all, thanks for the opportunity. I'll say from my point of view, I'd like since Ashley took over, in my opinion, we should and assess and bring in some additions, because quite clearly over Ashley's tenureship it hasn't happened. Bring in some of the club legends, whether it be in ambassadorial roles, the likes of Keegan, Shearer, just some sort of role. I think the academy training ground in City needs invested in massively, because it clearly hasn't been done in the last 13 years. I'd like to see the club engage a lot more with fans and speak on a regular basis, make the right decisions regarding players and staff, which clearly hasn't been done regarding a 40 million Joe Linton. I'm hoping to give the fans some transparency when a statement's issued, and what they hope to achieve and how long it'll take to return the club to the powerhouse that I believe and it so desperately deserves to be. Anyone asking fans to intervene and object need to understand we've had a criminal owner for 13 years and we have no way of any control over who buys our club. We've waited a long time to get rid of this beer drinking so-called owner, and it's about time we had something to celebrate, and it's about time we were able to get the cans out. Thank you.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm not sure that we should be saying that Mike Khashoggi is a criminal, but so we'll disassociate ourselves from that straight away. But thank you very much for your contribution. And now we are going to move on to Alex Hurst, who is the chair of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust. Are you there, Alex? Can't hear Alex. Are you there, Alex?
Hello, George. Can you hear me?
Yes, got you there. Got you there. Oh, that's a good lockdown beard.
Oh yeah, the hair as well. I think the barber's reopening is a priority just for me though. So first of all, thanks so much to you, George, to Chief, for putting this together. I think, quite short notice on a Monday night for hundreds of people and thousands to be watching to come and talk about a takeover that hasn't happened yet tells you about how crazy this football club is and its support. The Supporters Trust, I'll not lie, we've had a frustrating period with the current incumbents at Newcastle United, and it is quite frankly devastating to see supporters continue to be charged for season tickets. Just yesterday and the start of this week and last week for games that aren't going to happen. So I absolutely understand that many fans are delighted and won't look beyond anything past that Mike Ashley and the people he employs to run the club are going to be leaving. The Supporters Trust, like was said earlier, 97% of our quite large membership are, firmly in favour of this takeover. And while we at the Supporters Trust, we appreciate some of the comments tonight, some of our members have been on and spoken about their concerns, we exist to hold the club to account. We're a critical friend of the club, and we would like to see a relationship moving forward that puts Newcastle United fans at the centre of the football club, not as an afterthought, not as someone to take money from when they're on games, being played remotely soon, but at the centre of the football club. Echo some of the things people have said in here about concerns about, particularly why the club, why the people buying the club, why they're doing it, all those kind of things. And I think whatever happens, whoever buys the club deserves a fair chance to communicate that to us. We're not going to rush to conclusions. We're not going to rush to condemn without giving those people the right to talk to us and you, the supporters. And we think it's really important that we start this relationship with the new owners on a level footing. Of course, at the Supporters Trust, your voice is magnified by joining. So if you want the Supporters Trust to have a say or raise concerns with the club, the only way you'll be able to do that is by joining, making your voice heard, and helping us communicate what you think to the club. So I just wanted to make that point and say thank you to all you guys who've hosted it, who've spoken. We're getting many comments at the Supporters Trust about the meeting tonight. Lots of fans engaging. It's been a real success. I think this is the start of something. It's not the end. Start of something special for the club and the community. And I would just say join the trust if you can. Would love to have your voice as part of our message.
Thank you very much, Alex. That's great. And I will. I hope it's not. Hope I'm not straying into biased territory to say that you really should join the Supporters Trust. I'm a member. It's how supporters can convey their thoughts and feelings to Newcastle, whether it's the present regime or the next one. And I would really push everybody to do that and recommend that everyone does that. So thanks very much, Alex. Okay, next on the line we have Linda Bush. Is Linda there? Are you there, Linda?
Hi, can you see me?
Got you.
Yes, and you can see me and hear me.
Both.
Great stuff. Hello, wasn't expected to come on, but I pinched one of the slots, so I haven't prepared anything, but that doesn't stop me from showing emotion and passion for how strongly I feel about this. I just want to say, as a Newcastle United Supporters Trust board member, I'm clearly 100% here to represent all of the NUST board members, but I think this would be a plea to anybody who hasn't joined Newcastle United Supporters Trust. I think join up, because I think that we are going to be leading the way. Some of the things that we've heard tonight around Amnesty International, around women's rights, around lesbian and gay rights, absolutely the community, they are at the heart of Newcastle United Supporters Trust work. And if you think they're not, just watch when we next hold elections. I think I just want to take my Newcastle United Supporters Trust hat off, and I want to say I have a huge dilemma. I have a small daughter who plays football. I'm married to a woman. She's an Evertonian, but that's, you know, don't hold it against her. I grew up, and every single part of my life, from birth, deaths, marriages, christenings, absolutely every part of my life has been influenced by Newcastle United Football Club. Every photograph, every discussion, names in the family, all sorts of things. And I think what I would say to you is the two things are not mutually exclusive. You can support Newcastle United Supporters Trust and you can absolutely take a stand against human rights. And I think it's been really difficult for Newcastle United Supporters Trust and the fans to be held responsible for something that is what we really, we actually pass that responsibility onto the people that we vote for in a political sense. And I think, you know, the UK government has to take responsibility for what they're doing with Saudi Arabia, and this takeover should go ahead. And then just watch how important some of the inclusive messages and the inclusion agenda is important to Newcastle United supporters, fans. And, you know, we'll work with the club and they'll have to work with us. So bring it on.
Great stuff, Linda. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. We're rattling through contributors here, really appreciating it. Stephen Kirby, do we have Stephen Kirby on the line, please?
Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, got you loud and clear, Stephen.
Yeah, champion. First of all, apologies, I've missed everything up until about 5 minutes ago. I've had some challenges. I've got 2 little children, so apologies if I'm going over all ground here. So from my perspective, I'm very much in favour of the takeover. I believe 99% of people are, 97 people, so 97% from the Supporters Trust survey. I think that obviously from our perspective, there's been a lot of noise in the media where Newcastle United supporters are supposed to be making this a sort of sacrifice, if you like, in sort of rejecting this takeover on, you know, moral humanitarian grounds. And I think it's a lot easier for people to say that when they don't have any skin in the game as we do. So my concern is I'm a little bit worried about the sports washing angle of it, from what we've seen on Twitter mainly over the last few weeks. Examples that, you know, Newcastle fans tweeting very harsh tweets to Amnesty International. Some of the tweets to Khashoggi's widow have been pretty galling to see from a Newcastle perspective, really, that our fans are doing that. I think it's important to have the right tone in this discussion. And I think from what I've seen over the last 5-10 minutes, that has been the case this evening. And that if people moralise or talk down to Newcastle supporters, then they're just going to push people away. And seeing that with Miguel Delaney from the Independent had some very good points, but the way he went about making them, he lost the plot a little bit, and he didn't really. It's not really a good way to make friends and influence people. Yeah, I suppose the question I would have, Amnesty International, I know we're not doing a Q&A at the minute, is assuming the takeover goes through, we're assuming that it will go through, do they see any value in taking a more measured tone towards Newcastle United fans? And if it goes through, what's Amnesty's approach likely to be like? We've sort of heard these rumours that there might be demonstrations organised outside matches, which I think would be extremely irresponsible. But yeah, I suppose that was my concern, really.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Thank you. We did have a contribution from Amnesty a bit earlier, but thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that. Right, let me see who's next on our updated list. So we have Jake Swinburne. Is Jake Swinburne on the line, please?
Hi guys, can everyone hear me okay?
Got you, Jake, yeah.
Good stuff, thank you, George. I'll just crack on. Appreciate what everyone's been kind enough to listen to everybody so far. I think two points that come to mind, first and foremost, that the primary one, I think, being around the statement read out from Jamal Khashoggi's grief-stricken, clearly fiance. I think it's and first-hand experience tells me certainly that there's nothing more soul-destroying on a personal level than losing a family member on what should be a joyous occasion. I won't dwell on that too much, but I think it's clear that I think everybody's got to respect her point of view and what she has to say. I think that and welcome it really, but I think it's hard to get involved in that kind of space and have clear and strong views on things without sometimes bordering on hypocrisy. I think clearly everybody involved doesn't agree with some of the reported atrocities and the reported human rights issues that come with the Saudi state. However, if you look at some of the historical decisions of clubs like Bayern Munich that are championed worldwide as a supporter-run club, and I don't want to get into that too much really. So I think it's clear to just stay clear of that hypocrisy a little bit. And the second was more a football point as to what I'd like to see from the owners. Appreciate it's not being covered a whole lot, but I'd like the decency and the communication to know that we're going to implement a modern football structure. I think we've seen recent years when Alex Ferguson left Manchester United and Arsene Wenger left Arsenal, clearly the success that they left behind was a success that we as a club could only dream of. But the repercussions of them leaving have been strong, to say the least. I think it'd be good to moving forward to see the new guys or the new owners implement a sporting director and a more modern way of working. That's pretty much all I've got to say, George. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jake. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Next up, we have, please pardon my pronunciation, Adize Obuafor. Is that all right, Adize?
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Yeah, before I start, I would like to thank everyone who organized this. The main reason why I wanted to make a point was because as a student working in St. James Park, I am against the takeover, obviously, because as a fan of Newcastle United and as a student working there, my worry is that due to the cultural differences between Saudi Arabia and the UK, like there might be like limits as to how much rights we as employees or as fans could exercise in the UK or in the club. So I would just like to ask, how much influence would the laws in Saudi Arabia have on people working in the club or people, fans generally? That's just my question.
Okay, thank you, Adize. I'm not sure if there's a kind of forum for those questions to be answered here right now, but this is all informing our conversation. I mean, it's UK, so it's UK law applies to football stadium as it applies to everywhere else. So, I mean, I think if that's the question you're asking, I can probably answer that. But thank you very much indeed for your contribution. We're going to the last couple on our list now. Johnny Coates, are you there, Johnny?
Hi everyone. Hi George.
Hi Johnny, you all right?
All right. Cheers for having us on. I just wanted to make a couple of points. Obviously, everybody's touched on the issues around the sports washing. We get all of that, and you know, these things are political issues. I think we need to focus on one thing. The point I'd like to make really is I've been going to the ground since I was about 10, 11. I started doing the MAG programs, those sort of things. I got into games when Bobby Robson was there, and I've had a season ticket for the last sort of 15 years since then. And to be honest, our club has just completely gone. You know, we've lost the club to Mike Ashley and his ways. And what I would like to see happen, really, this is a fantastic opportunity to not only get the club back to winning ways, to performing on the pitch, but also to regenerate the area, something that Mike Ashley's completely neglected over the years. So even going as far as, you know, the bit of the land that he could sell that we may potentially be able to develop on, that's gone. I know that's a different issue, but the main issue is the whole stadium's been neglected. There's been no investment, there's been no link with the community, there's no women's team, there's those sort of things. You know, I think one way of getting the club back is to get everybody back on board, to get everybody around the table, as such as the fans have said, and the NUST space, get a space on that board. And also the other point I'd like to make is that I think it's an ideal opportunity, if this goes through, to bring back things, you know, the connection between the legends in the club. So like Kevin Keegan, possibly like Malcolm MacDonald, Les Ferdinand, you know, people, Rob Lee, people who've got an affiliation with the club, because a lot of these people, obviously, barring the Geordies, are from down south. And I think that the way we can get our message out to the sort of negative southern press, as I call it, is by having people from other parts of the country sort of selling the club. And I think it'd be absolutely fantastic for us to tie all this together with those things. Cheers.
Smashing. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that, Johnny. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. We're down to our last contributor now, and that would be Richard Grant. Do we have Richard in the house, please?
Yes. Hi, George.
Hi, Richard. You okay?
I'm not too bad. Great session. I was going to actually pose a question to you about the Premier League, but having listened to everybody, I'm going to make a plea from the heart. I'm in favour of the takeover, and the reason for that is after 48 years of supporting the club, and with no disrespect to the likes of Oxford, Coventry, Wigan, Derby, Swansea, you know, these are clubs, Forest, even Leicester, even Sunderland. I've never seen my club win a trophy. I was there for the Charity Shield. I was there for the 2 cup finals where we didn't turn up. I want to see my team go away to Man City, to go away to Arsenal, to Liverpool. And I want to see my team in the tunnel before kickoff. And I want to look at the players in the eyes and actually not see fear. I want to see my team and believe that they can compete and actually get a result, actually win, but to actually get a result and not to be defeated in the tunnel. Whether we like it or not, to be successful, you've got to have money, you've got to have brass. It's not a millionaires club, it's a billionaires club. And yes, we've got to be aware of the atrocities that are happening in Saudi Arabia. They're terrible. You know, I'm Jewish. I'm glad to see that the Reubens are on board. You know, what an advert that actually gives, that you've got, not being political here, Arabs, no doubt the Reuben family are supporters of Israel, sitting in the same room, on the same board, for the benefit of our club, my club, and the area. It's a fantastic statement. And hopefully, we might actually see Newcastle win something. But more importantly, public opinion might just have some effect worldwide and internally in Saudi Arabia itself. And let's just hope we can get this. I think Steve Wraith this morning on a podcast said, get the monkey off our back, and let's hopefully within the next 2 3, 5 years before I die, please God, we can actually bring some silverware back to Tyneside. Boy, oh boy, what a feeling. I don't know what it feels like. I really don't know what it feels like. I just pray to God that that is what happens.
All right, lovely. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, your lifetime, my lifetime, many of our lifetimes. Okay, so we've got a little bit of extra time, so we're going to crack on with another couple more. So if you're enjoying us, then we still have 2 or 3 contributors still to go. Kev Lawson apparently missed his slot a bit earlier. Are you there, Kev? Can
I
you
am,
hear
yes,
us?
thanks, George.
Hiya, Kev.
Hiya. I'm Kev. I've been a Newcastle United supporter since my stepdad took me to a dour 1-1 home draw with Swindon at the start of the 90s. For me, football is an escape from the rest of life, and going to the match provided sort of the only respite I could find for a long time after the loss of my mother. I accept that I'll become a hypocrite of my own political beliefs if the takeover does come to pass. On that point, as George stated, the prospective owners are yet to pass the Premier League's directors' test, leaving a lot of fans feeling like this town hall was a little premature. I respect everything that's been said. It's been a great conversation. But I hope the decision to hold the meeting now is a reflection of the overall confidence of the takeover being passed, because this saga and the ones before it is truly affecting the mental health of fans, of Newcastle fans across the world. I echo Dan's words about the club and the fan base needing to heal. It is it's a really, really important time for a lot of us. And I think if this doesn't happen this time, I think a lot of fans will walk away. For me, I'd be really interested to know what plans have been discussed between the City Council and Amanda Staveley's group at the earliest possible opportunity. And I would like to see the club provide young athletes with enough education to give them a future outside of football, so that the kids that don't make it to the first team or to even the youth teams have the ability to excel elsewhere in life.
Smashing. Thank you very much indeed, Kev. Just to repeat what we said at the start, and I don't want to speak for she here, but the idea is that Newcastle fans aren't being given a say on this takeover about whether it goes ahead or whether it doesn't go ahead, just like they haven't been given much of a say in terms of Mike Ashley's running of the club. So the idea is to have that conversation here and now. And okay, it might not determine what happens at the end of it. It does mean that you and we all have a voice, and it hopefully can guide the conversation moving forward. But thanks ever so much, Kev. Really appreciate that.
Appreciate it, George.
Okay, last couple. Okay, so we now have Gary Brown. Is Gary Brown there, please?
I am. Can you see me, George?
Can see you. Can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, smashing. Thanks everyone for organising tonight's event. Very encouraging. Very apparent how we all are passionate about our football team, but also how sensitive we all are towards the issues the issues the potential takeover could have. But maybe it's a question for Chi. The UK government website actually states that we are to develop and maintain long-standing relationships between the UK and Saudi Arabia. We build on the bilateral relationships between our two governments and peoples, especially in the areas of trade, investment, education, culture, etc. Why does Newcastle United have to carry the burden in the fans?
All right, Gary, thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. So now our last speaker for the night, I believe, is Scott McWilliams. Are you there, Scott?
I am. Hello.
Hiya, Scott. You okay?
Hiya. Yeah, this has all been really good. It's been great to hear from everyone. My point being is that it has been really good to hear from fellow fans about that they aren't taking the human rights issues lightly. But I just wonder, and I know this is not a Q&A, I'm just putting some points out there, and how long will and should it last? I mean, football's got a really good way of papering over the cracks of issues. Like, for example, someone like Nicky Butt, when he massively disrespectful in a quarter-final. Now, once he started putting performance back in for the club, it tended to get forgotten about a bit. But I do wonder that if successful football comes to the city, will the human rights issues just sort of disappear? And I am wondering, is that something that we should allow to happen, or are we responsible as fans to continue making sure we keep the club in check as it was, or do we just sit back and enjoy the ride? It's like it is a conflicted issue, as obviously, but I do feel many other fans that maybe aren't on here tonight, and I'm not trying to disrespect them in any way, simply won't care about the human rights issues, and they will just care about football, which after all is why we're all here. But so that's my point. So thank you very much, George. It's been an excellent evening. Thank you.
That's great stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Scott. Really appreciate that. And yeah, really appreciate everyone's contributions this evening. I feel like I've learned a lot. One thing that I haven't learned, one thing that I knew already, was what a passionate, intelligent, articulate lot you are, we are, that we're very capable of having a conversation about our club that is respectful, is passionate, that covers lots of issues and covers lots of feelings. The interesting thing is, I mean, it's very different to when I was growing up, when Newcastle felt like a very Newcastle place, in the sense that days would go by without reading about the club in national papers. And the debate that we had would be in the pubs or with friends or with family. And now, of course, we're in a global game, in a global society, and things that happen to our club ripple out across the world. And I think we've seen a bit of that tonight, and why we should be respectful of it and why we should educate ourselves to it. I've learned a lot. I would like to apologise in the sense that I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to this, or indeed much of life. And so thank you very much for bearing with me. And I'd like to say thank you to She, both for asking me to host this tonight, but also for doing this in the first place, because I think it's been a great chance for us all to talk and to listen and to think about what we want from our football club, both now and moving forward. So thank you very much indeed. It's been really interesting, really illuminating and good fun. And I'm going to pass you back now to She to say a few words to wrap things up. So thanks again, and over to you, She.
Hi, thanks so much. My background seems to be disintegrating, which might be because it's getting late. But I could just say, well, first sort of saying, hey, George, thank you for brilliantly hosting. We can't do virtual rounds of applause or whatever, but thank you for brilliantly chairing this evening, and also to say thank you to Newcastle United Supporters Trust for their support in putting this together, because I'd never been able to put this together, put that together so quickly without them. And particularly also, can I say thank you to Victoria and James, who have been like the support, organizing this, the technology, the YouTube, the admitting people, and the live tweeting. They've been an amazing amount of work to that. It's just been fantastic for me. It's been really great to hear people talking, fans particularly, talking sort of honestly, and about how we feel, how the city feels, and what football means, and what this takeover in particular means. And I'll be, I'm not going to make it I'm not going to answer any of the questions. I'm going to try to answer the questions, because it wasn't about me answering questions. I don't have the answers a lot of the time, but I feel much more that I understand what people are thinking and saying about this, and that it's much more kind of, sorry to put it like this, but it's kind of much more nuanced and intelligent than some of the stuff that people out there are, unfortunately, accusing us of. What I'm taking out, I've saved the chat. So I'll be looking at that. This is being recorded. We'll also be sending out an email with some of the links to some of the people who've spoken. Let me thank all the speakers as well. It's going to take me at least some time to digest all this and think about what this means for how I represent Newcastle United fans in Parliament. But the sort of the messages that I'm taking away is the passion for Newcastle United, the impact over the last 13 years, the importance of transparency and communication and understanding, what's happened. Whoever owns Newcastle United, I did meet with Mike Ashley. Whoever owns Newcastle United, I will engage with them and I will, look to support the club as such an important part of our culture, history, and economy. And in the meantime, let's keep this going. I might try and organize another one like something like this. We had it now so that I could, we could have a debate, could continue, and I think we need to continue that debate. But thank you so much to everybody for taking part, and let's how are the lads? With that, I'll say goodbye to everyone, and I'll close down the meeting. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.